Lyn Thyer, who is having a really terrible time in the worst prisons in Europe, which are French prisons. She's with another innocent woman. What the French do is they round up innocent people, illegal under the Magna Carta and common and habeas corpus in England, but in France and Europe they can just round them up, put them in prison, and then they go looking for their husbands or boyfriends. So there are even more innocent people in French prison than there are in English prison. She's extradited under the illegal European arrest warrant. The European arrest warrant legislation says that no evidence is necessary. I'm sorry, but under Magna Carta, which can never be repealed, and under the Habeas Corpus Act, which can never be repealed, they have to produce evidence in England. So the extradition laws are completely illegal in England. Lyn, of course, has committed no crimes either in England or France. In fact, neither of us did anything with GC-MAF in France, and yet the MHRA has deliberately organised her extradition to give her a sentence which she is not due. She has committed no crime, and yet they want her 2 years, 4 months before her trial, and then 10 years as a sentence. This is utter corruption. It is utter evil. And this is the European Union, which is utter evil. And, well, she of course was working on GC-MAF, and she was stunningly successful. She ran our 2 clinics. In the first clinic, she got the success rate up with terminal stage 4 cancer to 75% of lives saved. In the Guernsey clinic, the last clinic they closed down, she got the success rate with terminal stage 4 cancer up to 89%. And if the MHRA hadn't closed us down, we were trying to get closer and closer to 100% of all terminal stage 4 lives saved. So the MHRA and that very corrupt parliament over there have killed 2 million people by concealing GC-MAF from the public since it was discovered by scientists in the 1980s. So if you have a family member who has died from cancer, please join us where we are bringing a class action lawsuit against the government for 2 million unnecessarily deaths in cancer. So if you just put the person's name, address, what they died of, how old they were when they were died, and also your name, your contact details, and a short summary of what happened, we will add you to the class action lawsuit. And we think we are going to go for £1 million for each family of the deceased. So that is therefore a $2 trillion lawsuit. And don't forget that if GC-MAF is put in the NHS today, it will save 120,000 lives a year if they do it badly. So we have to campaign to get GC-MAF put in the NHS, and we have to campaign to free Lyn Thyer. Thank you all so very, very much for coming.
Hey, right on, David.
Thanks, David. I mean, it's a fantastic turnout, and our challenge is to get GC-MAF into people's vocabulary. Because at the moment, of course, it's a term that very few people have heard of. But, you know, the government and the pharmaceutical industry readily acknowledge that 1 in every 3 people will contract some form of cancer in the course of their life. But they also forecast that that's going to increase to 1 in every 2 people by 2025, and everyone will contract some form of cancer, it's forecast, by 2040. And the pharmaceutical industry is rubbing its hands in glee at the potential revenue stream here. And of course, there's no interest in curing cancer because they want to protect that revenue stream, coupled with, of course, the agenda to use it to accelerate the demise of people who cannot, due to ill health, contribute directly to the corporatocracy. So we're having, because everyone's making the effort, we're having tremendous success. And it was no surprise to me that within 72 hours of announcing that we would hold this GC-MAF awareness event here today, the BBC then decided to do another hit piece on GC-MAF and David Noakes. No attempt at balanced broadcasting, no attempt to make any contact with people who have benefited from GC-MAF, simply to demonize and of course make outrageous claims that David was, purely in it for the money. If he was interested in money, he'd have stayed in banking. So, David and Lyn are the epitome of altruism. Their sole motivation for what they do was to provide an opportunity for people who have the misfortune to have their immune system compromised and contract some form of cancer, and provide an alternative to the pernicious and horrendous treatments that are on offer, the only treatments that are on offer by the pharmaceutical industry. It's almost a decade now since I lost my sister. She had supposedly the best healthcare. She was at the Royal Marsden for nearly 4 months. And the only thing, of course, that the medical profession offers is chemotherapy, radiotherapy, or major surgery, or any combination of. And, I saw my sister go through sheer hell in the last 2 years of her life. Had GC-MAF been available, whether she took it or not, it would have been an option. And this is the fact that we absolutely need to address, going beyond just GC-MAF. And that is that the medical profession, the MHRA, and a compliant and complicit government want to remove our health choices. Legislation was introduced in the EU in 2013 to effectively outlaw all natural healthcare products. It hasn't been enforced fully, but that's why naturopaths and herbalists are becoming increasingly difficult to locate, because the government and the regulatory bodies make it extremely difficult for them to practice their chosen profession. So, if people choose to go down the path of chemo and radiotherapy, of course that is their option. But sadly, in most cases, they have no idea that there are alternatives available. And currently, of course, the likelihood is that those around them will persuade them to stay with orthodoxy and go down the chemo radiotherapy route. So this isn't just about GC-MAF and cancer, it's about health freedom. It's about our sovereignty and our fundamental human right to choose how it is that we treat ourselves when the body is compromised, when the physical vehicle is compromised. And I know that David is absolutely an advocate of health freedom. He works very closely with Scott Tips, the president of the National Health Federation. And forgive me if I'm letting the cat out of the bag, but I believe that David is the future president of the National Health Federation.
Hey.
Oh, I let the cat out of the bag, sorry.
Yes, the National Health Federation, which is in 22 nations, headquartered in California, is one of in a handful of benevolent health freedom organizations. Has a magazine, Health Freedom News, and the National Health Federation has a very dodgy chairman who has been to prison. The chairman of the National Health Federation is David Noakes, and I have been to Wandsworth Prison for GC-MAF.
Good on you, David.
And as I'm sure some of you are aware, the National Health Federation has a seat as a consultative member to the Codex Alimentarius Commission. And of course, very few people have heard of Codex Alimentarius, and you're not meant to. You know, it's words that don't naturally slide off the tongue. It's not part of our day-to-day lexicon. But the Codex Alimentarius agenda has been an agenda that's been around since the early 1960s, and the intent of the Codex Alimentarius agenda is to outlaw all natural food products and all natural healthcare products. And who's behind the push now to introduce GMOs throughout the world? None other than Bill Gates, the man who's been pushing vaccines in the third world. And if you haven't seen the episode of Humanity versus Insanity that I did with Dr. Graham Downing 3 weeks ago now, and then last week with David, in the first half of that program, we were discussing the experiments that have been conducted on unsuspecting people throughout the world in the interests of supposed health science. In reality, there was a much more pernicious agenda, and of course that was to effectively make significant chunks of the sub-Saharan population infertile. So anyone who thinks that the establishment has your or my best interests at heart just isn't paying attention. There are so many things that we need to address, but we have to pick them off one at a time. And GC-MAF right now, I think, is an absolutely primary cause. And David, if it wasn't for you and Lyn, GC-MAF wouldn't be in the vocabulary, and the people that you did manage to save would not be alive today. So thank you so much.
Hey.
The website of the NHF is thenhf.com, and in England it is thenhf.co.uk. We have a number of campaigns there, and right at the top, of course, is to get GC-MAF into the NHS, where it will save 120,000 lives a year, and to get GC-MAF into the American hospitals, where it will save 600,000 a year. What we're going to do now is visit the 3 political parties, their head offices. So the Conservative Party is at 74 Matthew Parker Street, just over there. The Brexit Party is down Victoria Street, and so is the Labour Party. And we have 3 presentations to give to those parties. So we'll march, and Ian will decide when. We want to get some leaflets into Portcullis House, some into Parliament, and into any other building that you think is relevant. Thank you very much.